welcome to season 2 of Chisme del Cielo, where we talk about the only gossip worth sharing, the good news. I'm your host, Yahaira Valenzuela, and you guys, I'm so excited to be back. Obviously, a couple of new things to just kind of fill y'all in. As y'all heard, I do have a new intro, and this one is super special to me because my little brother actually came up with it and recorded it for me and everything. And mind y'all, I did not ask him to do that. He just said that I needed one that matched the aesthetic of the podcast better, and thank God he did, because it is so beautiful and it was such a sweet gesture, and it's so special to me now because my little brother made it for me. So shout out to my little brother. I love it so much. But also, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, then you know that you can actually see me now. So hello, this is me. I wanted to start recording video as well for the podcast because, well, for one, it gives me more content so I can post on TikTok and Instagram, so kind of selfish reason there, but also because I do have a lot of guest speakers and people that I want to interview this season on the podcast. So I figured you might want to actually watch those. So I was like, I'll just start recording, and then that way I can kind of work out the little kinks and things to figure out how the best way to do this is, so that I can record when I do have the guests on here. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, so now you get to see me, so hello. However, downside of that is that for season 1, I was using my standalone mic to record on my computer, but now that I'm recording video and I don't, obviously, as you can see, have the best setup going on for me, I didn't know where to put the mic, so I'm just using my little interview mics that I use for TikTok and stuff. So the sound, I think, is not going to be the best, but bear with me. We're going to start saving our money so that eventually I can get better mics for you guys and all the things, so that my sound can be better again. But yeah, I'm really excited. If you guys are coming back, welcome back. Thank you so much. I love you guys so much because I know most of you are my personal friends. And so thank you so much for the support that you guys have shown me since I started this podcast last season. I'm very happy that you guys are still listening. And if you're new here, welcome. I hope that you like this podcast. I don't know. But with the new season being here, obviously I have a lot of ideas and episode ideas and things that I want to do, but one of the main reasons that I started this podcast is because I wanted to answer your questions about the faith. So if you have any questions, as always, please send them to me, DM me on Instagram or text me if you have my number. I don't know, but I want your questions so that I can find your answers and put them in the episode. So I, keep sending me those, and of course, keep praying for me, because I would not be here without God and without you guys' prayers. So please continue to pray for me as we embark on this season 2 journey together. But yeah, let's get into the actual episode. So, a couple of months ago, I came up with this title idea, and I knew that I wanted this episode to be called New Year, Same God. What the contents of the actual episode would look like, I had no idea. I didn't know where I was gonna go with this title, what I wanted to actually talk about, or what it was gonna mean. But praise God, he enlightened me this at the start of this year, and so I finally have an idea. But it is going to be more so just testimony part 2. I kicked off season 1 of the podcast talking about my story and everything that led me to want to start the podcast and just led me to be where I am in my faith and my spiritual journey now. And so I felt like it would be kind of good to do a little update and kind of share a small testimony of from when I started the podcast to now, right? And so for those of you who don't know, I actually got to kick off 2026 at SEEK26 in Fort Worth, Texas. And so it was such an amazing and fruitful time. I got to go with my my young adult ministry, some of my friends from my young adult ministry. And I ran into so many of my other friends that I have. And so I think that was a really big plus side to the conference being so like local. Like it was, felt like it was in my backyard, you know, in Fort Worth. And so I got to see so many people, so many friends, so many familiar faces. I got to catch up with so many people, which was super awesome. I actually got to see like my university priest, and I got to catch up with him, and that was so sweet and so amazing and healing. And I don't know, I loved every moment of that interaction. But yes, so another thing that happened at Seek was just this amazing encounter that I had with the Lord in adoration, of course, while sitting in his presence. And it was kind of like a sequel to something that I had heard in a talk earlier that same day. And so as I was sitting in adoration and reflecting on my time at Seek and reflecting on my journey as a podcast host and where I am today, I think kind of all of those things put together gave me this incredible idea for what I wanted this episode to be. And so again, I am going to talk about myself a little bit, but because I feel like I experienced this like small moment of conversion at Seek. I don't know, it was really crazy. And I wanted to share it with you guys because some of you are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, girl, duh, like we've all been there. Like, where were you? Catch up. And if so, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so glad that you made that realization before me, because I now feel like I wasted so much time not having made this realization. But all it took was me hearing it from someone else. And so my hope is that with you guys hearing this like little Seek story and reflection from me, that maybe something will click in your brains as well, the way that it did for me at Seek, and you will also have a little life-changing moment. And if not, then you get to just hear me yap for a couple of minutes, and you can come back for the next episode, and hopefully it will hit a little better. But yeah, so back to this idea of like new year, same God. As I'm sitting here, as I was sitting there reflecting, I was like, okay, it hit me. I know what I want to talk about. And so I'm gonna talk about it now. So let's get into it for real this time. Let's go. So as I mentioned, I was sitting in adoration, and I was praying about my day and my days at Seek, my time at Seek up until that moment in adoration, and even praying about the podcast, because again, it was something that I was like, okay, I want to kick off the new season soon. So like, what are we doing? And it brought me back to something that I had heard earlier that day. So I went to listen to this talk, and the guy the speaker, he was talking about, sharing this, like, these troubles that he had in his family, right? So he and his wife and their children, right? They had a son who was diagnosed with like cancer, and he had been through all of these surgeries and spent all this time at the hospital. And while they were preparing to go into another surgery for their son, he had asked his wife, how are you doing about, or like with all of this? Like, how are you doing with this? And he shared that her response was just, I love God's will. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I'm not a mother. I don't have children. I don't know what I would have responded in that moment, but when we think about like times of trouble and how we would respond, we're usually not thinking about how we should respond, but rather how we would respond. And I cannot imagine that in a moment like that would have been my first answer. And so it was honestly really like beautiful to me to hear him say that, because I was like, are you serious? Like, your son is going into surgery and you're just thinking, wow, I love God's will. I love that he did this, right? And that's when I realized, maybe I am the problem, because she's right. Like, and we are called to love God's will. This whole like, let it be, like, thy will be done, let it be his will, not mine. And that was something that I said a lot last year, but even then I think about all of those times when I was going through something not so easy, or something, a little troublesome, like, I was not thinking, wow, I love God's will, I love that he's doing this to me. And so right there, I'm like, my eyes kind of opened a bit, right? And I was like, okay, I'm awake, keep talking, like, let me hear where you're going with this, because like, period, that's a beautiful answer. It's a very like Christian answer. It's a very like, yeah, yeah, I wish I was reacting like that, but I'm not. And so as he continued talking, he said, and he brought it back to when they first received this diagnosis, right? And he said, I just remember praying. He remembered praying, you know, like, Lord, I don't want to understand. I just want to accept it. So help me accept it. And so then I'm like, right there, I'm like, ding, 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 like strike two for me, because every time something has happened, whether it be good or bad or like whatever, but just something crazy has happened in my life, my instinct was to pray, like, Lord, help me understand it. Like, I was like, I'll do it. I'll follow you. I'll do whatever you want, but like, why? And I think that's like a common flaw, right, that we have as humans. Like, it's something that I think a lot of us usually turn to. Like, we always want to understand. That is the human in us. We want to understand, but we're not called to understand. We're called to accept. And if you truly do like love God and trust him and trust that he has a plan for you and that his will for you is a good one in the grand scheme of things, then you would also be praying to accept and not to understand. And so then I was like, oh my goodness, that was my problem. You're right. All this time I've been praying to understand, knowing that I'm not God. And so knowing that honestly, I don't even think it's possible for me to understand his plan. Like, I was still praying for that. I was still praying for understanding. I still wanted to know why. And again, as humans, like, I think it's very normal for us to want to know why. It's very normal for us to want to understand, especially because I consider myself an academic, you know. I'm a science teacher. I want to know the reason for things. I want to understand. I think that's kind of how our brains are wired as humans. But like, it's God we're talking about. It's God's plan. I don't even think we're capable of understanding, even if he wanted to tell us, right? And so I was like, okay. And so hearing his testimony and hearing just how powerful their story was, like their family story, and how they were reacting to everything, I was like, I want to be that way. I was like, I want to pray for accepting of his will and not understanding of it. I was like, that's goals. But like, actually, like, I was like, that is so beautiful. And that is a level that I want to attain. So right there, I decided, okay, 2026, I'm going to stop praying for God to help me understand. And I'm going to start praying for God to help me accept it. Because I've spent so much time telling people to trust God and telling people to, you know, well, let it be his will, not yours. And you know, all of this. And like, to some extent I was following my own advice, but at the same time, I was also over here saying like, but why? Like, I want to understand. So like, why? And so I said, all right, that ends here. That's what I'm taking away from this talk. Like, that ends here, right? And so I'm like, okay, cool. So fast forward to that night, right? I'm sitting in adoration at Seek, or 2 hour adoration. And I was just, you know, thinking about the podcast and thinking about life and thinking about that talk and all of these things. And I was like, okay, so what now? Like, want to tell me something? I mean, you don't have to, but like, want to tell me something? I don't know. Like, I was just kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, what now? Like, literally, I think that was my question going into adoration, which was very weird. Like, I don't know, but I was just kind of like, yeah, all right, I'm sitting with Jesus. I'm sitting in his presence. I'm sitting with all of these other Catholic young adults worshiping our Lord. And I'm like, okay, but what now? Right. And so I started to journal and I'm just thinking about all of these things. And then it hit me that because of that little like mentality, like flip that I had, right, with this whole like understanding versus accepting of his will for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's my episode right there, right? Like, I was like, new year, same God. And I started to think about what that meant for me, because I was like, all of last year, all of 2025, I felt like I was really committed to the Lord. I was really committed to growing my relationship with Christ. I was really committed to growing in my faith, right? And following his will for me, right? Like, I was really committed to all those things. And I was doing all of the right things. I was receiving the sacraments. I was praying. I was going to young adult ministry. I was doing Bible studies. I was doing the podcast. Like, I was doing all of the right things, but like something wasn't hitting. And so obviously I was like, that's my problem. I was praying for understanding and not accepting. And I think that God wanted me to see that. Like he was almost kind of like laughing at me, like saying like, okay, cool, but like until you get this one thing, we can't keep going. So like you're just gonna be stuck here. And honestly, I can tell you now, like I did feel stuck for a second there. I felt like I was entering this like dry season, like I wasn't hearing God anymore, which was really difficult for me because I'm trying to discern my vocation and I'm like, I don't hear God. I don't know what he wants from me. I don't know what he wants me to do. I don't know. And I was trying to stay hopeful about it, because hope does not disappoint, Romans 5:5. I was trying to stay hopeful about it, and I knew that it had to be happening for a reason. I just wasn't sure what the reason was. And so I was just kind of stuck. And so going back to, now I'm like, okay, new year, same God. Again, like, what does that mean? And I'm sorry if that's like annoying because I keep repeating the title, but genuinely this was what was going through my head. I was like, what does that even mean? So as I'm writing in my journal, I'm talking to God, I'm sitting in Jesus's presence. I was like, okay, what the heck does that mean? Like, what now? Like, I have the title, I have ideas, I guess, but like, what does that mean? And so I just kept praying. I'm like, God, like, what does that mean? Tell me something. Like, I'm just trying to hear you right now. Like, it's cool if you don't, but like, I had this big realization. Like, what do you want me to do with it? And I just, my hand started writing. Like, I was like, okay, period. Like, I'm on fire. And it hit me that all of last year, like I said, I had spent all of this time doing the right things, but I don't think that I had crossed that like little, like jumped over the little, like obstacle that I had there, right? Because I kept praying for understanding, and I think God wanted me to know that was not what I was supposed to be praying for. Like, that's not what he was calling me to. And the thing that came to my mind during this time was this like idea of right person, wrong time, which felt really silly because obviously God is always the right person, and technically there could never be a wrong time for him. It's always God's time, and it's always a great time to know God and to find God, right? So I was like, why am I thinking like right person, wrong time? And then it hit me that all of last year I spent so much time falling in love with God because I knew it was the right thing to do. And because I knew that it was going to help me heal, and it was going to help me get through all of these things from my past. But I think that I didn't necessarily do it because I felt, or like deep down knew, that it was the best thing for me. And so I kept writing, and I kind of came to this distinction of like, I fell madly in love and not deeply in love. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But it was like I was falling and falling and falling and falling in love with God, and no time spent with God is wasted time. So I know that it was all good for me, right? But after I flipped this little switch at Seek this year, which was like right at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh my gosh, I just like fell in love all over again, and on a way deeper level. Because I left that day just thinking, like, Lord, I love your will. Like, I truly do love your will, and I will follow you wherever you call me. I will do that for you, because that's what radical love is, and that's what radical trust is. And I was like, no, I finally get it. It was last year was the right person. I was spending the right time with the right person, but it wasn't necessarily the right time for us because I still couldn't get past that. And so now I'm like still with the right person, and it's the right time, because now that I understand this difference between understanding and accepting his will for me, I'm like, I can finally go in to this new year with the same God, but with a new mentality, ready to just fall deeper and deeper and deeper in love. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it made sense in my head, and it made sense to God. I know it because he knows my heart. But I think that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys, because again, like, it literally took an entire year of me like begging and in prayer to understand, for me to finally get to this point, all because I heard someone else say it. And God does that, he speaks to you through other people. And so my hope for this episode is that maybe you already knew this and maybe you're way ahead of me on this wave and you've been having this mindset, and good for you. I'm so happy for you. I wish you would have told me. But if not, like, my hope is that maybe this helps flip a switch for you. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, because I feel like now my advice for you going into 2026, and I know I'm like a month late because January is about to end. My advice for you going into this new year is just to learn to accept his will and stop trying to understand it. I think the other thing that kept coming back to me was like this saying, right? We've all heard it before, the let go and let God. I thought that I spent all of 2025 letting go and letting God. Like, I thought I was letting him control my life. And as I have now this new mentality in this new year, I can't help but think like, no, Yahaira, you were not letting go and letting God. The fact that I was wanting to understand everything so badly just shows that I was still trying to control my life, right? I wanted to understand so that I could have a say in what was happening, have a say in what his will for me was, but that was never his intention for me. And so going into this new year, like I said, just learn to accept it and stop worrying so much about understanding it. Because in order for you to truly, truly let go and let God, you have to eliminate the word understanding from your vocabulary. And not too much, because I know it's one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So like, not too much. You should understand things, but not his will. You don't have to understand his will. And that's what changed everything for me. It was just this realization that like, I just have to accept it. Because if I truly want it to be his will and not mine, if I truly believe that it should be his will and not mine, then I just need him to help me accept it. And it's okay if it's hard for you to accept it because you're human, and it's okay if you still want to understand it. But that difference of like the prayer being, help me to accept it and not help me to understand it, it's going to change everything. So I'm really glad that I went to Seek this year and that I got to bring that home with me. And I'm really glad that it kind of helped me sort of tie into this theme of like New Year, same God. Because I'm telling y'all, I went into this year and I was like, yeah, same God, same Catholic. Like, I'm going to turn up. I'm going to keep being my little disciple self. Like, I'm going to keep being a strong, cool Catholic. But like, how was I going to do that? Right? Like, without this realization. So I'm glad that I made it. And I'm glad that I'm here. And I'm glad that you're here. But yeah, that's my advice to you going into 2026. Take it or leave it. But please continue to ask me questions and please continue to pray for me, because I need your prayers, but I will be praying for y'all as well. So that is it for today. God bless y'all, and let's continue to learn together. Let's grow together. And of course, let's be saints together. God bless you guys.
If you're as excited for this podcast as I am, make sure you follow on whatever you're streaming it on right now. Also, subscribe on YouTube and follow on Instagram at Chisme del Cielo for any announcements and so that you can DM me questions you might have so I can research it and get it on the pod. If you're feeling crazy, drop a review or a rating for the podcast, and please keep praying for me. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.